Let's look at Thursday's games. There were 9 games on. There's ridiculous chaos because the NBA puts 9 games on a day where the trade deadline happens, so you've got stupid lineups. So we're going to try and decipher as much as we can. It'll be fun. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I've fallen victim to the Scunthorpe problem. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok, at redrock_bball, and on Instagram, at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms. Be a double banger. Watch the video, then go listen to the audio, get them both rolling, and give that thumbs up, give that notification bell a crack, and subscribe and leave your comments. I am unbelievably tired, but we're going to power through, and we're going to talk about all of the action on Thursday across the NBA. We'll see what we can get out of it. What happens at the trade deadline is we look at things that happen in real time. We go, oh, well, I think this happens, and then we sit back and look at it an hour later and go, well, okay, this might happen. And then we see the coaches deploy the players when they're waiting for traded guys to come. We go, oh, well, that's a little bit different. And then we see the traded guys arriving. Oh, well, that's different again. And then we see the rotations settle in a week or two's time. We go, oh, well, that's different again. So this is what's going to happen. You're going to have guys that you think were the must-adds, or the guys that weren't the ads, that become the ads and then drop away from being the ads and become into drops. And it's like we said at the start of the year, there's all weird settling of going, oh, why is this guy in the rotation? And then 2 weeks later he's out. Why is he not playing? And then later on he is. And that happens here as we sort of sit and try and figure out how all this stuff fits together, and the coaches try and figure it out in real time as well. There's a lot of weird stuff that is going to go on. Be nimble, be ready to sort of be quick on the move, and adds and drops, and understanding that there's going to be weird stuff that happens that doesn't necessarily play to what my expectations are, but also what your expectations are. Whether it's the same as mine or not, I've got no idea. But you might have a different thought on a different player, and that guy jumps up and this guy jumps down, or whatever it is. Weird stuff is going to happen. That is the name of the game. The only real bit of news I think that's happened since I last spoke is that Danilo Gallinari was waived by the Pistons. So I don't know. Look, they made just so many moves, and so many of the guys that came in. So Joe Harris is gone, Archer Jacquino's gone, Gallinari's gone, Killian Hayes is gone. One other guy got waived. They waived 5 guys, and they got injuries. And we'll talk about them later on in their game. But yeah, Gallinari did get waived today. So that's something that happened. Yeah, so that's that. So just if he's that helps someone like Asar Thompson, because we heard Monty Williams talking about how much he loved having Gallinari out there, and just those extra bodies to play minutes that might impact someone like Asar. It's gone away. That's good news in that respect. Let's look at some waiver wire trends. This doesn't capture everything, obviously. It's the last 24 hours. So some of this is post-deadline, some of it's pre-deadline. The most added player was Andre Drummond, which is really interesting. I guess a lot of people were doing that to stash him for the deadline. It didn't work out. And then he came off the bench today, so it really didn't work out. And then he played 1 million minutes next to Nikola Vucevic, so it did work out. That's what I mean. Like, you added Drummond so he'd be traded. He didn't get traded. He came off the bench, and he played like a starter anyway. What a roller coaster of emotions. Asar Thompson next. It gets hard to judge the Pistons team today because there's still got a lot of pieces that need to arrive. I do think there is an opportunity for Asar. He is fine to roster, absolutely, but I'm not sure it's as clear of a 30-minute pathway as maybe it appears, but it also might be. Andy Wiggins up 18%. I'm not 100% certain that he's guaranteed must roster, but sure. Keontae George up 11%. Tony Jones, who covers the Athletics, says, hey, it would make a lot of... covers the Jazz for the Athletics, said, hey, I think it would make a lot of sense if George moved into the starting lineup for this team now. So that's something interesting. We know that they've got no small forwards on this team whatsoever. We'll talk about George and the Jazz later on, who, of course, are still missing some pieces. Amen Thompson up 8%. Well, you obviously go and grab Amen now if you've got the waiver ability, if he's there with the trade deadline passed. And Precious Achiuwa up 7%. So again, the long-term outlook for Precious doesn't look particularly strong, but we got an update on OG Anunoby having surgery on his elbow. And then in-game today, we had Isaiah Hartenstein leave. So It all is coming up Achua at the moment. But then later on, you'll have Robinson, Randall, Anunoby, and Hartenstein all come back, and this guy might play 5 minutes. So it's a very wild, up and down type of scenario for Precious, and everything sort of just folded right into place with the news over the last 3 hours for his value. The most dropped players, Cam Whitmore down 8%, while the Rockets made no move to open anything up for him. That makes sense. Mo Bamba down 7%. I still think Mo is an interesting enough deep league option because the Sixers made no moves there. And they got rid of Marcus Morris. Nick Richards down 6%. I don't get it. I would not have dropped Nick Richards, but anyway. Jaime Jaquez down 6%. Joshie Richardson down 5%, and Lonnie Walker down 5%. They're all total 12-team league drops without really any question whatsoever. So let's get in and talk about these games. All right, so let's hit up the first game, the Golden State Warriors and the Indiana Pacers. A lineup change here for the Warriors. Klay Thompson was out with an illness, so Brandon Podziemski, he stepped back into the starting lineup, and that just seems to be the case. Wiggins is out, Podziemski's out. They'll just go with Podziemski. We'll see exactly what happens when Chris Paul does return, how they run that. But at the moment, Podziemski's got that role. Bit of a blowout victory here for the Warriors. They win at 131 to 109 over the Pacers. Steph was unbelievable, especially early on. I think he had 18 points in the first quarter. He ends with 42, 11 triples. Not much else going on there, but 68% shooting. Steph's last 3 games. He had an absolutely monster game, a nothing game yesterday, and then this gigantic one here. Kuminga continues on pretty strongly. The last couple have been a little bit lower, but still 18, 2 and 4 with 2 blocks. And Podziemski, 34 minutes, 9, 7 and 7, 2 steals and a block. Hard to see those minutes keeping up for Pods, but it's still a good performance, and I would hold. My man Lester Quinones played 27 minutes. He had 6 and 5, while Guy Santos had 13 and 8. We've got no Clay, no Paul, no Peyton here, so all those guys are going to have an impact on Santos and Quinones. Wiggins had 11, 4 and 5 in 26. Nothing super exciting there to write home about, and Kevon Looney is 100% on his way out of the rotation. I feel like they're definitely just playing him so he keeps his games played streak alive. 2 points in 5 minutes. For the Pacers, a really weird game from Halliburton. He was scoreless at halftime. He played just 26 minutes. He had 5 points on 29%. He did have 11 assists with a steal and a block. There is still a bit of a buy low here available for Tyrese Halliburton because he's not playing that well at the moment. Obviously, they were without Buddy Hield, but Doug McDermott hasn't joined. Not that matters that much. Nesmith, only 26 minutes. Again, the blowout cut everyone's minutes back. 13 and 4 with 5 steals for Nesmith. He should be on a roster, while Jalen Smith had 14 points in 13 minutes and then was out with back spasms. So he was putting up some really good numbers. He's at least a streamable guy in these low minutes. Siakam had 16 and 8, Nembhard 10, 1 and 3, and Miles Turner 15 and 7. But again, hard to read too much into it. But what I would read into is, again, just another stinker from Ben Mathurin. 11 points on 18% shooting with 0 rebounds and 1 assist. He played 24 minutes. He might play more, that Hield's gone, but he just has such an unfriendly game for fantasy, and there's just way too much inconsistency in what he does for me to feel super confident in his production as a regular thing. So yeah, he was not super strong. I'd be okay with holding him in like points leagues, but in category leagues, to me, he's very much on the border in that sort of a format. Let's go to the next one. Actually, no, we won't go to the next one just yet. We'll go into that second, because today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with me to give you the guaranteed best fantasy picks. Well, I don't know if it's guaranteed, but it's a guaranteed fit all season long. Hopefully these guys become guaranteed fits on your roster. Let's talk about Marvin Bagley. I think that when Marvin Bagley returns from his injury, maybe next game, he's going to be the Wizards starting center over Rashawn Holmes, and that makes him worth an ad. And you know me, I don't particularly like Bagley from a real-life perspective or from a fantasy perspective, but this situation demands that we pay attention to him. So, go and have a look to see whether Marvin Bagley is available on your waiver wire, because is that the move that takes you to a fantasy championship? Well, it might be. And knowing that the right fit is key to building a championship team, the same that eBay Motors knows with your vehicle. With 122 million parts, over 122 million parts in fact, for your number one ride or die, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever it is your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it is guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you are burning rubber and not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to US customers, eligible items only, and exclusions apply. Okay, let us do the second game of the day. It is the San Antonio Spurs on a back-to-back against the Orlando Magic. 127 Orlando, 111 San Antonio. Only 23 minutes for Victor Wembanyama. 15 points, 2 threes, 1 rebound. 3 blocks. I'm guessing that the game was out of hand. Well, I know the game was out of hand, but the minutes are kept lower here, and because it was a back-to-back, so I wouldn't be too panicked about it. It's not ideal. Vassell had 30 and 5 in 35 minutes, while Trey Jones, 10 points, 6 assists, and 3 steals. Sohan on another bit of a slow run here, 9-2-1. I think he can be rostered. If you wanted to drop for somebody else, it's all right. Well, Zach Collins had a better game with Wembanyama's minutes down, 12, 3 and 3, 2 blocks. I would not bother rostering him in 12s. And the Horse had 12 points, Keldon Johnson, in 24 minutes. Not enough for me. 12, 4 and 1 for Keldon Johnson. Not enough for him to be a 12-team league guy. In fact, Jack Armstrong.
Get that garbage out of here!
Branham had 2 points in 20 minutes. I'm not convinced about him as a prospect at all. Franz Wagner, 28 minutes, 34 points. 34, 7 and 7 and 2 blocks is huge. And we finally got a little bit more of Cole Anthony. He played 19 minutes for 12 points. We're not trusting that. He had 71% shooting. We don't care. Johnny Isaac, 9 and 6 in 19 minutes. 19 minutes is not enough for Isaac to be a 12-team league player, while Fultz had 2 and 5, 4 assists and 2 steals. He's sort of going back and forward. And I don't know that he's a must-roster guy. I don't know that Wendell Carter's a must-roster guy, who now only played 26 minutes here. And I think you're looking at those guys as a little bit more fringy than must at this stage. Suggsy, 17, 3 and 2 with 2 steals and 3 threes. I would have Suggs over Fultz and Carter from this team. And we got Banchero having 16, 5 and 6. Not a huge amount of massive takeaways, I don't think, from the Orlando Magic, just as a general rule in this one. The next game was the Cleveland Cavaliers taking on the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets, no Spencer Dinwiddie. He was out of the starting lineup. So Jalen Wilson stepped into the lineup. This was a guy that I've talked about a couple of times just to keep one close eye on, and he moved straight into that starting lineup today, and they didn't win, but he was there. We'll talk about them in a second. The Cavs, they just keep winning, 118-95 the final score. Mitchell continues to just absolutely roll. He's the 4th-ranked player over the last 2 weeks, and he's 7th for the season. Amazing. 27, 5 and 4, 3 steals and 3 blocks for the Don. That is just ridiculous stuff. Allen had 14 and 10. Mobley had 14 and 12 with 2 blocks, and both guys had 2 assists. Jarrett Allen... Jarrett Allen has dropped off significantly since Mobley returned. We knew this would happen. He's going to hover in that 40 to 60 zone, I would guess, rest of season. And Mobley is still going to push up. Garland, the buy low, still there. Because that's not super sexy, 14 with 7 assists. But he shot well, and he played on the back-to-back. The winter soldier, Max Strus, I think we're done.
Get that garbage out of here!
6 and 5. Karis LeVert, we're definitely done.
Get that garbage out of here!
4, 3 and 5 in his 23 minutes. Easy win. Now, for the Nets, this is where things get interesting. Obviously, there's no Cam Johnson. There was no Lonnie Walker. There's no Dorian Finney-Smith. And we don't have Dennis Schroeder on the team yet. So there's a lot of stuff that still has to happen. But let's talk about Jalen Wilson, who played 40 minutes. He had 8 points with 2 threes, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. He won't play 40 minutes every night because, obviously, Finney-Smith and Johnson are going to come and take minutes. But it is interesting that he was the guy that they went to as the starter. Just keep an eye on that for deeper leagues. Claxton struggled 6 and 7. Cam Thomas had more shots than points in another surprising development, 17, 4 and 1, 30 minutes. This is where, again, we have the issues with Thomas, is that we talked about him as this buy low, sell high guy all the time, and he was a sell high show 3 days ago, and in his last 5 games, he's outside the top 100. Like, that's how quickly it swings for him because of his game, honestly. Ben Simmons played only 20 minutes, 6, 1 and 2 with 1 steal. And the big numbers came from Dennis Smith and Trendon Watford. 26 minutes for Dennis Smith, 6, 4 and 7 with 5 steals. And Watford had 15 and 6 in 26 minutes. But remember, is Dennis Smith going to play 26 a night when Dennis Schroeder joins? Probably not. Is Watford going to play 26 when Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith are there? Probably not. Now, Johnson's out for about another 4 or 5 days, maybe another 2-3 games. But these are not guys that I'm prioritizing to add. We had 23 Noah Clowney minutes in this one as well, who had 8 and 4. This is just one of those games where there's probably 5 rotation players not available here. Johnson, Schroeder, Walker, Sharp, Finney-Smith. It's a lot. It's a lot of guys who need to come in and take guys like Clowney and Keon Johnson and Watford and reduce Smith and reduce Wilson. A bunch of things need to change. So while it was intriguing and somewhat informative to see Wilson start, this is not going to last in its current format at that sort of a setup. We're just not going to be able to hold it there. It's just not going to happen. Simple as that. Let's go on to the next game. Yep, it is, what is it? The fourth game of the day. The Dallas Mavericks and the New York Knicks, two teams who are heavily involved in trades today. The Knicks were without Jalen Brunson, who was out with that ankle problem, so Deuce McBride stepped into that starting lineup. That is not a surprise at all. We didn't expect. We knew that was going to happen. The Mavericks obviously are without a bunch of key players. They are without, in this one, no Derek Lively. Then we're still waiting on Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington to arrive, and Dante Exum was out. But they win 122-108. Doncic played 40 minutes, 39, 8, and 11, 4 steals, a block, and 7 triples, putting up ridiculous numbers again. Kyrie, a little bit quieter here, 16, 5, and 6, and Hardaway had 19 with 5 threes. We know what Hardaway is. We know there's the ups and downs with him. Fine. If you want him, fine. If you don't. Good game from Derek Jones, 18 and 5, and solid enough from Josh Green, 15, 6, and 3. But I don't trust either of those guys to be 12-team league players. I think the arrival of PJ Washington, who Jason Kidd said might start off coming off the bench, will have an impact on both of those players. And then we've got the situation with the centers. Now, in this one, it was Maxi Kleber, who had 2 points in 27 minutes and 4 blocks. But you're going to have both Lively and Gafford coming in the next half a week, 3 to 4 days, who are going to have an impact on what Kleber does. So while it's great to see good games from Green and Jones and a big win on the road, how much does it actually matter when you've got Washington, Gafford, Lively, and Exum even all needing to come back into the rotation? And the same goes for the Knicks. So this is interesting, but Bogdanovic and Burks not available to play. Anunoby, who's out for those 3+ weeks now, and then no Brunson here. So Josh Hart had 23, 10, and 12, a monster game for Hart. I think long-term, Josh Hart will be a drop. But while these players are out, you hold him. I think long-term, Precious Achiuwa will be a drop. He had 13 and 16 here. And then we had Hartenstein leave the game. He played 15 minutes. So it's going to have to be some Sims, even though Taj Gibson started the second half. But Achiuwa's going to be the guy. Like, huge numbers. And we roster that until these other guys trickle back in. The NBA's greatest player, Dante DiVincenzo, had 36 points with 7 triples. He might become a drop at some point, but we are nowhere near that spot at the moment. It could get there, but it just doesn't. And again, Deuce McBride, whenever he gets to play, he puts them up, man. He played 45 minutes because Thibodeau is again a maniac, although I will give Tom a pass. There were no options in this game. McBride had 21, 6, and 5 with 2 threes and 2 steals, but you're going to get Burks, you're going to get Brunson, you're going to get Bogdanovic, you're going to get so many different guys coming back and coming in over the next 3 days and then more games moving forward, that basically what we see out of this game gives you nice short-term stuff with Hart, DiVincenzo, Achiuwa, McBride, that it's not going to last, though. We need an update on Hartenstein, which, of course, at this point, we don't have that update on him. It is obviously a little bit worrying. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. The next game was the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Milwaukee Bucks. We had no Chris Middleton with that ankle sprain. I think he's probably, would be my guess, going to miss a week. But I don't know. Probably going to miss a week. And of course, they started Jay Crowder. But never fear, we did actually get to see some young guys in the rotation. But you know what the saying goes? An apple a day. The Bucks lose again. They're 1-5 now since Doc Rivers took over. Minnesota 129. The Bucks 105 for the Wolves. They had their trade, but Monte Morris not available yet. Jaden McDaniels left this game with a finger sprain. He only played 19 minutes, 8 points. We're not rostering him in 12s. We watch for the status of him. If he misses, then Kyle Anderson is probably worth looking at, although Anderson seems to be more limited to playing the 4, and they might just go with more Nickeil Alexander-Walker there. Although Anderson had 8, 5, and 6 with 2 steals here, that'd be at least a 14-team league sort of eye look at it if McDaniels misses. Mike Conley had 18, 5, and 9. Really good game from him. Gobert, 16, 11. The Wizard of Oz put up a good one as well. 17 and 4 in 24 minutes. I still don't buy it as a 12-teamer. And Towns had 19 and 5. There's not a huge takeaway here. The 25 minutes from Alexander Walker, the 24 minutes from Kyle Anderson are things to pay attention to if Jaden misses. For the Bucks, there was no Lillard in this one, no Middleton in this one. Patrick Beverley hasn't arrived either. AJ Green led the team in scoring. Of course he did. 27 points in 22 minutes with 7 triples on 82% shooting. I'm pretty sure we're not going to rely upon that, but it happened. And Jay Crowder had 21, 8, and 5 with 4 threes with no Lillard and no Middleton. Like, that's cool. I definitely would not succumb to adding Jay Crowder. This is good, but you know the motto for Jay. Yanni, Like they pulled him off early, giggity. He had 17, 3, and 7 in 27 minutes, and Leaky Beasley shot 8%. 3 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists. Leaky is 278th now over the last 2 weeks, and he is only a streamable player. Bob Portis, 12 and 9 with Brook Lopez back. Some extra minutes there because Brook played only 26 and Giannis played only 27. You can hold Bobby for now. I don't think it's a long-term thing. Well, Brook 12 and 5 and 2 blocks in his return. But just, again, a ridiculously messy game. Pat Connaughton starting at point guard again. He had 9 points and 9 assists, but we're not rostering him. Andre Jackson went scoreless in his 18 minutes. Marjon Beauchamp played 5 minutes. This team looks like they just look in trouble, man. Like, it just doesn't look good, and they've got some time to turn it around, but, man, it looks terrible at the moment. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little bit further? Ever wonder what adventure could be right around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue. It is perfect for city drives and for great escapes. Class-exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. And their lineup also includes the 2024 Nissan Armada. It'll change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. Tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. Okay, that brings us on to the next one, which was the Chicago Bulls. Yes, it was. The Chicago Bulls taking on the Memphis Grizzlies, was, that's the wrong button. Let's hit that one, right? Yep, the Chicago Bulls and the Memphis Grizzlies. We did have the change. Andre Drummond went back to the bench after they started him against the Minnesota Timberwolves' big lineup. Ayo Dosunmu moved back into the starting lineup, but didn't really matter in the end, did it? Because in the end, we had the Bulls winning 118 against a depleted husk of a Grizzlies team 110. But Drummond was the big story. The big avocado played 31 minutes off the bench and he had 21 and 13 with a steal and a block on 91% shooting. That's very interesting. I don't know whether that'll be their thing to do. Patrick Williams is out for who knows how long. And they really haven't gone to this alignment at all until that game against Minnesota. But you know what? It worked, and it worked here again. So that means that, yes, we go and grab Andre Drummond. Sometimes you make moves in fantasy and they pay off not for the reasons you think. And that's exactly what I think is going to happen here with Drummond. Well, at least in the short term. Vooch had 20 and 10 with 5 assists. Inefficient, but got those blocks and threes, which is good. While DeRozan had 30 and 8 and White had 20 and 6 with 8 assists. Not a great game from Caruso, but still we're holding him 7, 4, and 4 with 2 steals. But of course, with Drummond stepping up, that means someone misses out and it's Dosunmu again. 10 points, 2 threes. And this is the Ayo Dosunmu that I've hated from a fantasy perspective for years. And he finally convinced me that I was in and let's go. And he's putting up these numbers and now we're back to this nonsense again. Would you drop Ayo Dosunmu to add Andre Drummond? I don't think you're missing a huge amount with Dosunmu, honestly. So, sure. Like, if Dosunmu was going to play 37 minutes, we go with it. If he's not, move on. He's not a good per-minute guy. So, yeah, look, move on if you need to. Although, next game, it might be back to Dosunmu. I don't know. For the Grizzlies, they were without Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart. I didn't even show you the Grizzlies lineups. I should have shown you those because there was lineup changes there too. Jaren Jackson moved back into the starting lineup for Trey Jemison. Scottie Pippen, out of nowhere, moved into the starting lineup for Jacob Gilead. Of course he did. This is part of the problem with the Grizzlies is we just never know where this stuff is going to end up. GG Jackson played 32 off the bench. He had 27 and 9 with 4 threes. That's an awesome game. Do I trust it with Bane, Smart, Kennard, Rose, Williams out? I'm not sure. Does Chimezi Metu and Yuta Watanabe have an impact? They shouldn't, but they might. I don't mind if you want to stash GG. It's going to be very inconsistent, even game by game. Because remember, like last game, it was huge minutes for Gilead, and he had 8 points here, and Pippen didn't play, and now Scottie plays 29 and has 15, 2, and 6. Whenever Scottie Pippen plays, he is a 12-team league player. The problem is it's not often enough. So I can't in all conscience say, yeah, you got to go and grab Scottie Pippen. I would love to say it, but I don't know because they don't seem to be having him in every night. And of course, look, there was no Luke Kennard here. And does Marcus Smart come back? And does Bane come back? I don't know. Vince was great, 13, 11, and 8 with 3 steals. And big minutes for Santi Aldama, 15 and 5 with 3 threes. So he got the big minutes. Last game, he played 23 minutes with Tillman out and Jaren out. And this one, Jaren's back, and he plays 37 minutes. Probably grab Aldama, like if he's there. I still don't think that he's a super high upside player. Like that is just a totally okay line without being super good. Jaren is going to just be a problem at times, I think. He had 32 minutes with 28 points. That's not a problem, but only 1 block, 2 rebounds. He shot 50%, but was bad from the line. A lot of volume, and it's going to really amplify when he has those bad shooting nights. And Conchar had 4 and 3. Like he's sort of on the fence. And Jemison, who played 32 minutes last game, played 15. This is the unpredictability that I mean. Like, hey, maybe we thought Jemison could be the guy, and next game Jaren might rest, and Trey plays 30 minutes, or Trey might be off onto the street as his 10-day expires. It's really, really hard to feel any level of confidence with any of these guys. We feel good about Vince. We feel all right about Santi. We feel all right about GG. I feel all right about Scotty, but I'm not convinced what they're going to do every game. Like, I know that if they said, hey, we're giving GG 30 and Scotty's going to start, then I'd be all in on adding him. But, I don't know that, and nobody does, unfortunately, because there's no consistency so far. All right, let's move on to the next game. It is the Utah Jazz taking on the Phoenix Suns. We had a couple of lineup changes with Simone Fontecchio out. They did, in fact, go with Walker Kessler next to John Collins and Lauri Markkanen back at the 3. They really don't have any 3, so that was interesting to see. And Devin Booker was out of this game, so Eric Gordon got the spot start there. Let's go ahead and have a look at the actual game itself. The Suns win at 129-115 was the final score. The Jazz side is the more interesting side, I think, in this one because we need to see what Walker Kessler was delivering and where it was at. He got 27 minutes, so that is way better than what we've been seeing. 10 and 9 with 2 steals and 4 blocks. So that's super encouraging because he's been averaging 19 minutes a game. Is that what they continue to do? Is Kevin Knox going to cut into that? I'm not sure, but it was intriguing. 31 minutes for John Collins. He had 21 and 14. Big numbers there, although a team worst minus 20. That's part of the problem is how those two work together. Markkanen had 22 and 5, and Chris Dunn played a few extra minutes as they played a little bit more 3-guard. Chris Dunn played 24 minutes, 9, 4, and 3 with 3 steals. That's at least putting him on the 12-team stream radar. We got 30 minutes from Keontae George. Won't say it was awesome. He had 11 points with 6 assists. But the extra 4 or 5 minutes there are intriguing. While Jordan Clarkson played 32 and had 13 points, and Colin Sexton only 24. So while we got Keontae playing 30, it was Sexton playing 24. So if Sexton goes and plays 30, where do those 8 come from? So while that's good, and I think it is okay if you want to look at George, I don't think it's going to be an absolute must roster scenario. Clarkson was fine, but I think we're sort of in a fringy sort of area with him. And then we got Taylor Horton-Tucker. No wonder they lost. Taylor Horton-Tucker was back in the rotation. 7 points, 17% shooting, 14 minutes. Look, he's not good. Taylor Hendricks got minutes, so at least he's in the rotation. We'll see where this goes. 18 minutes for Hendricks, 3 and 8 with a block. Not a great start. If you added Hendricks as a stash to see what would happen, I'd like to probably wait on that until the All-Star break just to see, because they could obviously find an injury for John Collins. They could try Hendricks in the starting lineup next to Kessler and see how that works. 18 minutes off rip is pretty interesting for Hendricks. The line's not great because of the shooting, but I like the rebounds. I like he hit a 3. I like he had a block. There's a little bit of something there that gives me marginal hope, but obviously it's not something that's happening right now. For the Suns, no Booker, so Gordon started. 19 points in 38 minutes. We can stream him if one of the starters is out. Well, Grayson Allen. A lot of calls to drop him with Royce O'Neal arriving. He had 8 points with 14 assists, 2 steals and a block. I don't think that O'Neal is going to be a significant impediment to Allen. I think that all of those Okogie minutes and Bates Diop minutes and Watanabe minutes is more what's going to go to O'Neal. Allen's been massive for them. Unbelievable shooter. He's been better on defense than you'd think. Now he's adding passing. I don't think they're going to be rushing to reduce Allen's role, so I would hold him at this point. Nurkic had 16 and 8, while Bol played 14 minutes and had 6 points, and Eubanks got the backup minutes, 12 and 7. Durant was good. Beal was good, 31, 8, and 7 with Richie Beno for Durant. 2, 2, and 2. 2 threes, 2 steals, 2 blocks. While Beal had 30 with 7 assists and 6 threes. Big games for both of those big names. All right, let's go on to the next game. The Denver Nuggets and the LA Lakers. A couple of lineup changes here. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who hurt his hamstring and then said, "No, I'm fine. It's just a cramp." His cramp has lasted 3 days and he was out here. What a shock. Athlete lied. And D'Angelo Russell, who had a tune-up procedure yesterday, who everyone thought meant was fake for being traded, didn't end up being traded, was off the injury report, and then ended up being out. Because why would we ever want anything to be accurate or remotely within the realms of reality? Like, what are we doing here? Very obvious. The KCP hurt himself. But again, when they come out and lie and tell you that it's fine with a cramp, like, do you disbelieve it? I guess so. Because he's out. It's not a cramp, my guy. It's not a cramp if you miss a game 2 days later on. So yeah, we saw Max Christie step into the lineup for D'Angelo Russell. We saw Justin Holiday somehow swindle his way into another starting opportunity for Denver. The Nuggets do win it on the road, 114 versus 106, the final score. Let's look at the Nuggets. Holiday, we'll start with him because he started. He fouled out with 2 points in 22 minutes. That's pretty cool. Michael Porter Jr. had 27 and 8. The headmaster, Jamal Murray, had 29, 7 and 11. And Jokic had 24, 13, 9 and 3 blocks. Big numbers all around. With KCP out, look, nothing exciting. 7 points for Reggie Jackson in 26 minutes. Christian Brown saw a minutes decrease. Peyton Watson played 25 minutes for 5 points, but we're really not doing anything with KCP out, apart from jacking off Kentavious.
Get that garbage out of here.
For the Lakers, like I said, no D'Angelo Russell after he was absent from the injury report. We got a ton of Rui Hachimura minutes, and he had 2 points with 4 rebounds, and you do not roster Rui Hachimura.
Get that garbage out of here.
Max Christie hurt his ankle. He lasted 15 minutes for 7 points, while Reeves had 15, 2, and 10. Torian Prince played 34 minutes. Pockets cannot resist, can he? 13 and 3 with 2 threes and 2 steals for Prince. He's only a stream guy, as I'm pretty sure we're well aware. And LeBron and AD did most of the heavy lifting. 32 and 9 with 3 steals and 4 blocks for Davis. And 25, 9 and 7 for LeBron. If Russell remains out and you got Christie out, well, they had to give 7 minutes to Skylar Mays here. I expect that Russell returns in the next game, but we need to see. And then Jackson Hayes has found himself in the rotation, while Christian Wood played 19 minutes. 9 and 6 for Hayes with 2 blocks. They get pretty big there with Wood and Hayes playing those backup minutes, and Hachimura basically exclusively at the 3 because of the absences of those other guys. All right, let's go on to the final game of the night. Battle of the, the somethings, the Detroit Pistons and the Portland Trailblazers. Some lineup changes here. The Portland was without everybody. Detroit was without everybody. The Blazers moved Tamani Kamara back into the starting lineup. Chris Murray went to the bench. Jeremy Grant returned, but DeAndre Ayton, he was out. And on the Detroit side, we had changes there as well because Cade Cunningham returned and Killian Hayes has been moved to the scrap heap. So that was the changes we had. Plus the benches were completely ruined. There was just nobody around. But we got some interesting performances and stuff that we do need to talk about. So let's talk about that right now. What is that score? The ESPN box score is completely off there. I'm going to change that. All right, that's better. The Pistons win in overtime after being down massive. I think 20 points in the fourth quarter. They win 128-122, the final score. Jalen Duren played 37 minutes. He had 27 points, 21 rebounds, and 3 blocks. His defensive stats had been disappeared. They'd gone. That's awesome. He's the 21st ranked player over the last 2 weeks. Cade returned 39 minutes after sitting yesterday, 23, 2, and 5. But of course, there was no Isaiah Stewart, no Quentin Grimes, no Simone Fontecchio. Danilo Gallinari's been waived. They're probably the major ones here. No Shake Milton, no Troy Brown. So it is hard to fully understand what's going to happen. Cade had 23, 2, and 5, pretty good. Jaden Ivey played 48 minutes. This is the man that Monty Williams hates. 48 minutes. He had 26 with 7 threes. Just horrendous percentages, though. 38 from the field on big volume, and then 3 of 6 from the line. That makes him difficult in a lot of situations, but you do have to roster him. And the other one we've got to look at there is Marcus Sasser, who played 38 minutes. 17 to 11 with 2 steals and 3 threes. That's all well and good, except Fontecchio, Stewart, and Grimes are probably going to be rotation players. I don't think we're going to be able to find 38 minutes a night for Sasser. In the short term, if you want to stream him, I do get that. He's playing pretty well, but that's an extreme level. Remember, Killian Hayes wasn't in the rotation, and Alec Burks was, but there are a lot of players coming in. So don't get over the top. The way you can tell is Stanley Umude played 29 minutes. He had 14 points with 3 threes. Again, you could just easily say, well, Umude's out, so that means Grimes gets his minutes, and those 13 minutes for Roden come in. It just is, again, play the 240 game. It is really hard to find Sasser 30 minutes a night, every night, to be a must-roster 12-teamer. We thought, well, not we, let's rephrase this. There were a lot of people who were massive into Asar Thompson, thinking a lot had opened up here. I was okay with an ad, but I was a little skeptical, and it did not work out at all. Asar played only 29 minutes. He had some foul trouble, but with everybody out, playing 29 minutes is a red flag. 6 and 5 on 33% shooting, missed both his free throws. If you did add Asar Thompson, I think it's a hold, but I do think that our fears could be realized that this does not open up this gigantic path to minutes, and that they will play Fontecchio, and they will play Grimes, and they will play Sasser, and we won't get unfettered access to 33 minutes a night from Asar. We haven't got 16 minutes of Jim Wiseman in this game, so that's cool. And Muscala started and had 6 points. But again, this is a completely different looking team in a week, because Stewart will be back, Grimes, I guess, will be back, Fontecchio will be there. I just don't know how they're going to run all of this. Will they play Evan Fournier? Don't know. Too many questions. Well, so many questions, actually. For Portland, they were without DeAndre Ayton, Malcolm Brogdon, and Sterling Henderson. And then Ayton's replacement was Dwop Reith, and then he was out. And there was no Shaden Sharp, who's out for the season. And then we had Anthony Simons leave after playing 25 minutes. So what do we take away here? Well, Jeremy Grant had a big one, giggity. 49, 8, and 6 on 48% shooting. Simons was also popping off before he got hurt. We had 38 minutes from Thibault, which gave us 5 steals and 2 blocks. But are those minutes realistic? Probably not. Kamara played 36 and had 9 and 10. I don't care that much. And Jabari Walker, who'd been trending down really hard, played 43 minutes, 17 and 11 with 2 blocks as the starting center. But it took 2 players being out, Ayton and Reith, for him to get there. He was going to be benched. When they announced their lineup, he was coming off the bench. So hey, let's watch Walker, let's see where it goes, luxury stash, maybe they shut down Grant, all those things, right? But he'd been trending way down, and it took 2 players being out, Ayton and Reith, for him to jump back into the starting lineup, because they were going to start Kamara over him. So, yeah, again, one of those situations where it's just, look, Ayton, Brogdon, Scoot, and then Reith all being out makes it almost impossible to take much out of the minutes for Chris Murray, who played 28, the minutes for Walker, the minutes for Kamara. We got Ashton Hagans, who played 28 minutes. Ashton Hagans was announced as signing for this team 5 minutes after the trade deadline finished on a 10-day. He had 4 points in 28 minutes. So it's great to see some big games. It's great to see Sasser and Duran and Ivy. It's disappointing to see Thompson. It's great to see Walker, and it's great to see Thibault. But you could form an NBA team that's probably better than both of these teams with the players who are absent from this game, which, makes it really hard to assess where this goes in the long term. And again, it's going to be the problem with a lot of these bad teams all through this period where there's so many weird trade things, injury things. Also remember, again, this is a weird part of the season. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, while the traded players are moving around, you get some of the wildest rotations, and then they adjust again, then they adjust again after the trade deadline, then they adjust again in mid-March. It's going to be crazy time. You've got to be ready to look at it, but also not get too excited and too wrapped up in individual performances in these weird situations. Yeah, all right. We got that? I think so. That is the 9 games done across the NBA. Let's go and do monstrous line of the night. Yeah, let's go and do that right now. Who was the best performer today? We had a couple of candidates. I think in the end, though, the solution is pretty obvious. It was Luka Doncic, who had 39, 8, and 11. Another massive game from Luka, who just continues to put up great numbers. Again, when I say sell high on Luka, I mean take Jokic or Shea. Take a top 4 player back. That's it. That's what I mean. Great performance from him. The waiver wire line of the night, the best performer who's rostered in under 50% of leagues. I don't really think there's anything to take away from this game, but the big fella, AJ Green, old triangle chin, he had 27 points with 7 triples. And that game is one of those big, just chuck it out games, because he's not going to do that. He's not going to shoot 81%. He's not going to get those minutes most nights. The young gun of the night, the other day I shafted him. I actually skipped over him because I thought this guy's too good looking. He's too powerful to be a second-year player. So I made sure that we go to the passport legend, Jalen Duren, 27 points, 21 rebounds, and 3 blocks. And lastly, your dud of the night, the worst performer of the day. I forgot who we gave it to. Let's have a look. Oh, yeah, Big Nick Claxton, 7 rebounds, 6 points, 30% shooting. A lot of putrid performances today, but Claxo was the highest rostered guy, the guy over 70% rostered, who did perform the worst. Let's talk about the top 6 players now of the day. We'll start with the top 6 players in category leagues. Number 1 was Doncic, followed by Franz Wagner. Then we had Kevin Durant, we had Donovan Mitchell, Steph Curry, and Jeremy Grant squeezing in there at number 6. Your top 6 players under 50%, AJ Green at number 1, don't really care for that. Jay Crowder, also don't care. Eric Gordon is streamable while Booker is out. Achua, yep, we go and add him. Drummond, I think we add him. And then Greg Jackson. I'll talk about this now, but since I recorded the section on the Grizzlies game, it did get announced that A, Chimezi Metu got waived by the Grizzlies, and B, that GG Jackson got his 2-way contract converted to a 4-year deal. Fantastic. So now we have a bit more confidence in GG, but we still don't have confidence in minutes game by game. We still don't have confidence in shooting. He is going to be more of a points league guy than a category league guy. I don't mind an ad of GG Jackson, but this game does not signify that it's all going to be peaches every single game. Look at the game log, look at the variations. It is all over the shop. But not a problem taking a flyer. We'll see where it goes. Let's look at the top 6 players in points leagues today. Number 1 was Luka Doncic, followed by Anthony Davis, Jeremy Grant, Kevin Durant, Jalen Duren, and Franz Wagner. I should have used that as an opportunity to tell you there was more waivings. In Charlotte, both Ish Smith and Frank Ntilikina got waived. So that does, I think, open up some stuff there for Trey Mann. Trey Mann's an interesting stash guy in Charlotte, but a lot of it's just going to depend on what they do with LaMelo Ball. Because if LaMelo Ball plays, then Trey probably won't be useful. But if Ball is out, then I could see Cody Martin and Trey Mann playing a lot of minutes and being 12-team league players. But because of the nonsense with these teams and their bad injury reporting, we're sort of left a little bit in the dark with it at this point. Let's take a look at our last little part here. We're just going to give a bit of a checklist of some options. I think Keontae George, the minutes are trending up. It's okay to have a look there. You might have other guys you prefer. I think Andre Drummond is worth a look. I think GG is worth a look. But again, there's going to be skepticism. I don't have any confidence in those roles holding. I think Max Strus is completely droppable if you want to. Same with Jeremy Sohan. You don't have to make those moves, but I do think that they can be moves that do work out and make sense in the long run. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. Still a lot of stuff that can happen with this league and with this time of the year. And that brings us to the end of what has been an incredibly, incredibly long day. Go and hit the old subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, hit the notification bell, double bang the show, and I am going to pass out. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. See ya.